everyone, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss hiring slow and firing fast. I just wanted to make sure I didn't say that inverted. It's kind of like the fail fast mantra.
It's funny because I think if I had to describe our approach to things, it has been hire fast, fire slow. So that's
100%. 100%.
Ouch! Throwing a little bit of shade at my management technique. A few years ago, especially amongst venture-backed firms, there was this big whole mantra of failing fast, meaning come up with an MVP, a most viable product, a minimum viable product, and then kind of throw it out there and see if audiences and users gravitate to it. And if it doesn't, you can move on to the next thing. And if they like it, then you can iterate and then move it beyond a minimum viable product. So my kind of criticism of that was, well, if you pivot and then you pivot, right, to find something else. And I was like, well, if you pivot a few times, you're back to where you are, and there's no such thing as an overnight success. You got to kind of persist, you got to stick to it. So I wasn't necessarily a fan of the fail fast mantra. I felt this was like your typical VCs that basically see a lot of traction in other spaces, and they like a bit of a herd mentality. They want to kind of capture lightning in a bottle or move on, and I felt that was detrimental to entrepreneurs, because as entrepreneurs I always go, there's vision, capital V, lowercase v. You have a big idea of what it is that makes you go after something, but you got to kind of narrow it down and see the market and see the product and find the right people, and that takes time. So I never believed in the fail fast mantra per se, and I feel hire slow, fire fast is again your quintessential lazy, there are parts of it that make sense, but it is like a lazy approach to HR management, which is, take your time to figure out if somebody is a good fit or not, which means a lot of interviews, a lot of questions, a lot of references. And then
that doesn't sound lazy.
Sorry?
That doesn't sound lazy.
I'll explain what I mean. I don't mean lazy figuratively. I mean lazy, I don't mean lazy literally. I mean lazy figuratively, and I'll come to it. And then if things don't work out, just have them get off the train right away. Now, I'd like to expand a little bit, but you kind of said, you threw some shade there, so let's have it. What?
No. In our history, we haven't fired a lot of people or even parted ways with a lot of people based on our own decision.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to roll their eyes. I have a little bit of my heart's too big. I have sympathy for people. I don't know how to word it. I feel bad letting people go. I'll say that a couple of our all-stars today, there were moments way, way back that most other people would have said, this isn't working out, you got to leave. And I always go, hey, maybe it's up to you as a hiring person, as the manager, as the leader, and obviously the executive team to give feedback and kind of put people, maybe he's not meant to be a right winger, put him on defense, figure it out. So
that's hockey.
Hockey, by the way. So I've not really believed in the hire slow, fire fast, and I'll explain to you what I mean by the lazy part. The lazy part isn't literally. Figuratively, though, I mean, it takes some context. There you go again. What do I mean by that? I think, first of all, you got to differentiate between young talent and more experienced senior execs. So that's one axis that impacts how to approach it. Second, it's all in market, right? If you are Google versus Facebook fighting over going out and hiring the latest AI god, and he or she is getting recruited by everybody, and you want to move fast, sure, you probably need to move quickly because they're going to probably get poached by somebody else and you could lose out on a lot of talent. So very different reality than if you are a media content company in Birmingham versus London. Very different markets, right? So you can't just have, what I mean by lazy is, it's very one formula for all. Now, what I've learned, and my standard disclaimer, obviously my experiences are what they are. I try to make them relevant to a broader audience. I find that it's okay to hire fast when you're young. You have some skill.
The company is young, you mean?
No, I mean when that's another interesting variable. But I'm talking about the candidate.
Okay.
If the candidate is young and has either some kind of background or training, and you are ultimately going to mold them, I feel like you're better off actually hiring fast. Meaning, technically, if you're young, again, if you're not like the one PhD in astrophysics that, there's one of you in the world and 50 want you, that's an exception. But the reason for that is because you actually can only find out if they fit once they are in their role, in your culture, in your organization. And so it's actually better to, and obviously I do a couple of interviews and get some references, but you won't know until they're in that role. So you don't want to spend months and months doing that. Again, I understand why Google has 57 rounds of interviews, but I feel you're wasting your time because they're not going to give you references to the person they screwed out of money. They're going to give you references to a very filtered group of people. And they don't really have that much experience. So I feel you should actually hire fast, put them in, throw them in the pool. Now I've learned to not just walk away, make sure they don't drown. So to me, if you're young as a candidate and you're an employer, just hire fast. Where you should hire slow and take a lot of time, and I don't care how in demand they are and how is if they're very experienced. Because the way the world is going with the disruption, and we've covered this about how if you're at Fox, 10,000 people are laid off after the Disney acquisition, where are those people going to go? Sure, they're going to interview a lot, but that cushy job does not really exist at the new media profiles. And so I feel in that scenario, because it's also a more experienced person, an old dog, you can't teach them new tricks the same way, and they're more expensive, then you definitely want to hire slow and really figure out, is there a fit, is there not? And as much as they could be well, I'm ready to make a decision, good for you. I don't want to preclude you from accepting a good decision. So there, I feel it's got a lot to do with the experience. So that's the hiring part. The firing part, and I think there, given our history, I wouldn't actually change anything. I think the way we've approached it is pretty good. The firing.
Well, in the article, it was in the Harvard Business Review, and it said it can lead to what Guy Kawasaki, when he was still at Apple, called the bozo explosion, which I thought was funny.
What does he mean by that?
My interpretation, now I'm extrapolating, but was that if you hire fast, you might end up with a whole crop of bozos.
Great point. So Google had this line where they were A players should hire A players, but the problem is if you hire a B player, they'll hire a C person, and so there's a lot of quirky things to say. But absolutely, if you do hire extremely fast, well, there's a chance that not everybody is going to be sponge-worthy. Absolutely. So the fire part is. So we did a recent episode about giving into evil and kind of that. I said the temptation in life is you got to turn it away. You got to stick to good. It's hard. Every day you got to push back those voices in the back. So I go, would I change anything? You know what? I still like that we were like that we didn't necessarily fire people fast. I feel like giving people the opportunity to maybe try out a different position, change techniques, using sports analogies, to find their groove, has net, I think, made me a better person, made the company a more empathetic culture, and it's allowed us to hold on and grow individuals who have really become all-stars by just being a bit more patient and not just being heartless, cold, cutthroat because you want to please your investor. However, there is always a however. If I had to say which one would I change, I don't mind the hiring, I would just say I would still hire youth fast. I would probably, with more experienced people, really ask a lot of questions. And there's a lot of uncomfortable questions to ask, but I assure you, you're better off asking those questions before and not after. So I would tweak that, but the fire fast, I'm still glad that we didn't fire fast and we kind of held on to it. But I think same thing, what you want to do ultimately is have a system where you give an opportunity, you see this sometimes, you have a department that no longer exists, you're hey, apply for something else. If that something else doesn't then work, then nothing else will work. You should give people still that one chance, but if that one chance afterwards or that one change doesn't fit and you find okay, we're now on the 5th attempt here, you don't want to be in that situation. That makes some sense.
It makes sense to me, but I have the context of what we're talking about. So anyway, what do you guys think? Do you hire slow and fire fast or opposite? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.